Welcome to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, the daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball. You never know what special guest may stop on by any given day. Now here's the man of the hour, Mr. Steve Jones.
Yo. What's going on?
Hi, Dick Girardi. How are you?
You had to, look, for you were in broadcast heaven. Your guy, Noah, was in town.
Syracuse, baby. It was a good weekend.
You guys were, probably bonding the whole time. And,
Of course.
And
Jason and I were sat in the broadcast booth afterwards until 1:30 in the morning. So, it was a big bonding day. I know. You're wondering why we chose to be there until 1:30 in the morning.
Which broadcast booth?
We were in the comm radio booth.
Radio
1:30.
booth. Oh.
It was nice and toasty.
Go.
Because we went on after Christian Hackenberg and Jason Kabinda. So we listened to you guys. You guys were on for a good chunk in post game. It was Saturday was a big day, and we'll get to it. I do want to note there's breaking news right now from the NBA. Hall of Famer Dikembe Mutombo has passed away at the age of 58 from brain cancer.
Yeah. Yep.
Which is heartbreaking.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's... Yeah. Mutombo was one of the truly great shot blockers.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, in that commercial with him...
No, not today.
Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, brain cancer, it's... it's almost a year now since the son of one of my best friends passed away from brain cancer. So I know what a horrible fight that is. So again, Dikembe Mutombo was only 58. So the game on Saturday night, going into the game, let's just get to what we talked about. Jack and I talked about the key being win the line of scrimmage on both sides. We were emphatic about that.
Yeah. Would you say they won, Steve?
They won. They emphatically won the line of scrimmage, and then we had to pick out players, and impact players. And my two were Singleton and Zane Durant.
I wanted to bring up Zane Durant. I want to discuss the offensive guys in a minute because they crushed it in the run game. But it felt like every other play, Zane Durant did something big. Him and Kobe King both. Like, they just made play after play.
Yeah, Kobe King did a great job of seeing the field and making plays. And his vision now is so much better than, like anybody. When they get out there, and you start to play and there's a speed to it, you got to get used to the speed.
Yeah.
And now you look at, it's not just the plays he makes laterally, the plays he makes plugging the hole. They can keep him out there. And, if somebody wants to throw on first or second down, guess what? He's very good at covering that. Zane Durant, life's all about, sports is so much about matchups. It's not about the FPI and things like that. It's like all that gobbledygook that's just make-believe. Okay? It's not about point spreads, even though, no, it's all about point spreads. I gotta win my bet. Say, that's your problem. Okay, you put the money on it, that's your problem.
Well, good teams win, great teams cover, but continue.
Right. But I'm just saying, it doesn't matter. But in terms of the winning and losing, which matchups can I win? Well, we looked at the matchups, and we looked at the center guard matchups and saw him, and Brian Tripp was talking to us about this as well. And it just all added up that they could not handle him. This is going into the game.
Yeah.
They didn't think he could be handled. And the one thing any quarterback cannot stand, and Tom Brady would be the first to tell you, they don't like pressure up the middle. They don't want it in their face.
There's a reason Aaron Donald was so dominant in the NFL, is because pressure up the middle is a problem, because not only are they getting to the quarterback, but then you get flushed out to a side, and spoiler, the dudes on the edge are really athletic. Abdul Carter is pretty athletic, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Like, it's a problem. Deny Dennis Sutton. Like, you don't want to have it happen because then all of a sudden they come in the mix into an even bigger degree than they already are.
And so, look, he's now about 290. He may be 288. Maybe he's lost a couple, but he's about 290. One of his issues when he got here was the ability to keep weight on. Well, they've been able to put on a program that allows him to at least keep weight on and stay stable at that weight. He already at 6'1" has natural leverage. He's already, when you're talking about winning pad level, Durant plays low anyway. And so he wins pad level 8 times out of 10. And he also has a great feel for the game, which is it's such a plus.
Yeah.
And you knew he had a chance to have an excellent season. You could see that happening in the spring. You could see that happening in the preseason. Now you're seeing it play out to fruition in games. And he is a problem for opposing teams. And Penn State's been stout against the running game. They're facing a team this week that has struggled in the running game.
Struggled is a loose term. I would say more like they don't have one.
Well, now sacks are included in this, of course, but they're only averaging like 54 yards a game rushing.
I think their top rusher has, I believe it's no more than 160-ish yards.
TJ Harden.
Yeah, TJ Harden has 125 yards rushing on the season. So, what? Katron Allen got almost that this past week alone.
Yeah, Katron had 102 and Singleton had 98.
Yeah, so they combined broke that number.
So, yeah, but there are a couple of, you win the line of scrimmage. After the opening drive, the next 7 drives, they did almost nothing. They did almost nothing after the opening drive. That's why I made the point I made in the fourth quarter. The point I made in the fourth quarter was this. I said, get a 2-score lead because guess what? I said, I don't think they have 2 possessions left. Because, see, this is where the basketball experience comes in. You start thinking about possessions left. Okay? It's not about analytics and things like that. It's like, I don't think they have 2 possessions left in the game.
No.
Right? That's where you have to think that way. And they just shut them down. Remember, when you look at their rushing number in the game, 34 of it happened on one play by Fagan.
Most of the rushing numbers happen on one play. Most of the passing yards happen on 1 or 2 plays.
36 yards, that play was just
he just broke out. It was
that shouldn't have happened. I'll leave it at that. Now, the penalties. People will talk about the penalties.
Yeah, we'll discuss the negatives first. I want to discuss the positives afterwards.
Yeah.
So negatives first, penalty-wise. It just felt like...
Well, no, the Tracy play bugged me because that's a touchdown taken off the board in what's a 14-7 game at the moment. There's no need to do it.
No.
Okay, that's obvious. He's the first one to know.
Yeah.
Well, he wasn't the first one to know it. He kind of looked back and went, what did I do?
Yeah.
Okay.
He better buy A.J. Harris, I believe, a very nice dinner at some point.
So, right? But it happened. Okay, they still, in the end, it's weird how it turned out in some ways better because it's a 41-yard drive, and it was a minute 55 when Allen scored the touchdown, so they drained the clock down to nothing. Okay. All right, so in the end, it worked out. The play on the sideline with Rojas, they say he blindsided a guy. He's running to make the tackle on the quarterback, and this guy's trying to throw blocks downfield. What are you supposed to do?
And by the way, they went shoulder to shoulder. It wasn't him hitting his back. It wasn't him throwing an arm. It was shoulder to shoulder.
Hey, guess what?
Tight end bounced off.
Okay, it's your fault you didn't block him and got blown up.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, don't expect to be bailed out. Okay? It wasn't like he was some innocent guy running down the sideline and Tony just picked him out and just blew him up. Like, I'm going to go over here. He's chasing the ball. This guy's trying to block. It's a football play. Have a feel for the game. Okay?
Yeah.
Minnesota, Michigan. Onside kick. Okay? I'll explain that one in a minute.
This is something Jason and I discussed in the post-game show is just like, what are you
I'll explain
about?
in a minute what they will tell you and I'm going to tell you what BS it is.
Let's hear.
Okay?
I'm so excited for the. It's similar to DeJean last year, where he got called for a fair catch, and he was like, no.
Right.
Continue.
Okay. So they do that, but when Pat Bryant takes Jalen Kimber in the wide open field and blocks him in the back on the last drive, you miss that?
Yeah.
How could you miss that? It happened in the wide open space, not in traffic, in the wide open space. Like, how do you miss
shove.
that? Okay? Why did Sal Wormley leave the game? Poked in the eye. Okay? He'll be fine. His replacement was J.B. Nelson. Why did he leave the game? Poked in the eye.
Oh, boy.
Okay? Now, James was telling us this in the postgame show. Okay? I also found out later Kobe King got poked in the eye. So in all three cases, okay, that is the definition of hands to the face.
Yeah.
Okay?
Like, to get your hand here is difficult.
Okay? Now, those guys don't wear face shields.
But still, you have to get the hand.
Right. I'm just saying, just so you know.
Like, it's not like it's a hand here and it's on the chin. It is.
Like, for example,
on your
Sal
eyes.
doesn't want to wear it because they're worried about fogging up. That's why they don't. You know, some guys don't want it fogging up. That's why, even though they can spray something on there, they don't want
still,
that.
yeah.
Right. But you missed all that. Oh, but you got that one when the guy's trying to make a tackle and blows up the blocker trying to block him. Boy, awful call. No feel for the game call. Flat out, no feel for the game. Okay. So let's get to Michigan and Minnesota. Penn State was in the exact same position on the exact same field. In 2014, I'm trying to think, was 22, they've been playing even years. It was 2014. 2014. It was a penalty, so Penn State had to kick off from the 20-yard line. Or you know what? It was a safety, and Penn State had to kick from the 20. So James, the only thing he can do, they call for an onside kick. Well, they kick it, right? And Penn State recovers. Jesse James is offsides. Jesse James is offside? So we're looking at the replay. He's about maybe 6 inches behind the line. No, that's not the explanation we got later.
May I ask?
Because he's 6'6", his helmet was leaning over the line, thus he was in the neutral zone. Okay? Now I'm just explaining to you how the league. Now the league office. I called the league office about it because I said I just need clarification. What am I looking? Well, there's an imaginary line that goes up
Vertical.
Right.
It's like the offside.
Into infinity. I'm like going, what the hell? Well, that's what they're going to tell you in the Minnesota thing, that his helmet was across the imaginary line. Don't inject yourself in the game. His feet are behind the line. He can't help how tall he is. And remember, he's starting 5 yards back. He's running.
Yeah. Also, his helmet will not play a role in the play.
Okay, people lean when they run. What are we doing here? He didn't line up leaning over. He ran, and his feet are still behind the line. Don't inject yourself into the game. Okay, on a ticky-tack technicality. Okay, if they don't call that, does anybody know it or complain? No. I mean, stop. The Thursday night game between the Giants and the Cowboys was an officiating disgrace. Okay? And the reason was an officiating disgrace is every time you turned around, it was a penalty. Every time you turned around, penalty. I mean, Al Michaels justifiably, he spoke for all of us. He goes, oh, God, another one. All right? Too many.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean penalties aren't occurring and the players need to clean it up. But you've got to have a little more common sense as to what you're doing out there. I mean, the guy that made the call in the Tony Rojas play, he's probably being saluted by the league. Hey, great job. We're trying to clean up a play like that. Clean up what? The guy's blocking. Get out of my way. I'm trying to get to the runner over here. What am I supposed to do? Stop? Why should I stop? He's trying to block me. I didn't seek him out and hunt him down. Now, at that point, if I'm veering or whatever, hey, wait a minute. Hey, that can't happen. No. Right? And then you miss the obvious one in the open field. Really?
Yeah.
Okay? Same thing in the Minnesota-Michigan game. Why make a ticky-tack call like that? Because that's all that is. His feet are behind the line when the ball is struck. His helmet is over the line. Please. It's irrelevant.
There should be a margin of error. Because
the rule should be simple. Are your feet in back of it? Because guess what? You can only be where your feet are. Okay? Just make it easy on the officials. Are your feet in back? Don't give me this infinity into the whatever deal. Okay? I'm getting sick and tired of these just warped interpretations where they're making the officials have to do too many things. You got to look at his feet. You got to look at his helmet. You got to look at just look at his feet. Right? Like in basketball, okay? What? Because you're leaning over the line? It's not a three-pointer? No, they're only looking at the feet. If your feet are behind it, we're done.
Yeah. And it felt like multiple plays throughout the game where there were just bad calls missed watching it. Like from the press box, could see on one play, I think it was Abdul Carter, got free and was going after Altmaier. But the offensive lineman had his arm around him like here, like shoulder height, and was just holding him. And Abdul was trying to run forward, but is getting held like this. And the ref is looking at him, watching it like there's no problem with that. And I'm like, what do you mean there's no problem with that? He's getting held back literally. He can't go forward.
I know.
And it's not like the guy was in front of him. He was behind him holding him.
Now,
ridiculous.
The part where I want to at least slow down on officials is simple. Okay, number one, it's a hard job. I know it's a hard job.
Yeah.
I've always recognized it's a hard job. Okay, can I do their job? No, I cannot do their job. That's why my criticism rarely has been of the on-field officials. My criticism, for the most part, has been about the review people because guess what? They have time, which brings us back to the Miami game with Virginia Tech on Friday night. Okay, in the end, do I think they got the call right? Yes. But that's not the rule. Okay? The rule is not to insert yourself into the game. Okay? Your rule is, the rule is, do I have indisputable video evidence to overturn the call? If the play was called incomplete on the field, you'd have to have evidence that he caught it. But it was called a touchdown on the field. Well, after watching that jumbled series of replays, and ESPN did as well as they could. I mean, they had like 3 or 4 different angles of it, which is fine. But you can't tell. You can't tell.
No.
Right? And do I think they got the call right? Yes. But you can't make the call they made because it was called a touchdown on the field, and I can't tell. You can't see it. You can't make things up as you do it. That's not your job. Your job is to say indisputable video evidence. We can't tell. Okay? You have to have indisputable video evidence. Was that indisputable? You couldn't tell. Well, it's called a touchdown on the field, so you got to stick with what was called. Nope, not them. They decided to play football God. Okay. Now, do I think in the end, the odd thing is, do I think in the end they actually got the call right? Yes.
Problem is,
right? So
how they got there was right.
How they got there was wrong. In fact, how they got there was against the rules.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they broke their own rules, right?
Yeah.
To get it right. Like, no, that's not your job. Okay? You know, you have to have the process of overturning a call, which means you have to have Okay? Not just video evidence, indisputable video evidence.
It has to be clear.
Yep.
And just, it has to be clear and concise. That's the rule in soccer. It's going to be clear and concise.
Did they get it right in the end? In my opinion, yeah, it is the right call in the end. I didn't, I thought originally it was incomplete.
Yeah.
Right. But then it was called a touchdown. Well, now you got to overturn this. Okay, you're watching it, going, really? So my problem has been more with the video replay guys. Why? Because they have time.
They have time, and and
they're not getting a lot of these right.
They're not
in time.
But what was good refereeing wise was a lot of the on-field calls, at least to an extent, some of them felt positive. The fact that the refs did actually see all the different false starts gave me like some sort of joy, knowing that they could legitimately see them, because a lot of the time we see these false starts happen and they don't get called. But Illinois got wrecked by false starts, illegal shifts, everything on special teams and on offense especially. It felt like every other time they would get to a tough situation, like 3 of their false starts were on 4th down.
Right.
A lot of that was the crowd. The crowd was getting into it. It was loud in the stadium. Right. And they couldn't handle it. Their special teams couldn't do it. And we saw it towards the end of the game. It backed them up to a point where it took them out of field goal range. They were first and goal, and then all of a sudden it was a 41-yard field goal after multiple penalties. The intentional grounding, I think, happened. It pulled them back.
I know Brett was not happy with the intentional grounding call.
Yeah.
He complained about that at the end. But it is the on-field guys have a tough job. So, and I say that because I appreciate the hard job that they do very much. And there's also, I don't want people getting out of it. We're starting to get a situation, especially in high school and junior high school, where schools are playing multiple days a week because the number of officials in all sports is going down. Now, in junior high and high school, right, a lot of times it's the parents. Right?
Yeah.
Getting too emotional about it. The job is hard. I mean, that's why I always laugh every time they ask a parent to be the umpire at a Little League game. And all of a sudden they're out there like, strike.
I umpired
Ball.
Little League. I was 16 years old.
Right.
I was umpiring 7 and 8 year olds.
Yeah.
And on one of the team, I knew the parents. I knew the parents that grew up with the older siblings, and so I knew them, they knew me, so they didn't shout at me every time something went wrong.
Right.
They said, hey, we saw this, and I was like, no, I saw it differently, and they were like, okay, we can respect that. The other team I did not know. And what did those parents do? Every time I had something slightly wrong for them, similar to the other team, I would get cussed out.
They were merciless.
These are 7-year-olds playing t-ball.
Right.
I am 16 years old. I don't look more than 18 at most. And I am getting cussed out by parents in front of 7-year-olds.
Right.
Like, I get parents go to games, they want to root on their children, all these things. Like, have decency. Don't be that person. Because most of the referees who do high school, who do Little League, all these things, either in Little League are high schoolers like I was, or they're not Ed Hockley. They're not like the greatest umpires and referees we've ever seen in the game. They're not even Angel Hernandez. Like,
well,
they are here refereeing these games. They are not going to referee the Super Bowl tomorrow.
Now,
so calm down.
Right. Now the next part is that let's be square about it. I mean, college football officials at the Power 4 level, okay, are not getting $1.95 to be out there.
No.
They're actually getting some pretty good coin. Basketball, they're getting some pretty good coin to be out there. So it's not as if, they don't, they're not getting a fair amount to be out there. Okay? And so, but I do have respect for what they do and the speed of the game which they have to do it. We can talk about like the Rojas. That's just, it's not the right, they can claim it's, oh no, it was a blindside. Blindside, he's the one blocking. He's trying to get to the ball. He's not sitting there saying, okay, blindside is when you deliberately hunt somebody down, right?
Yeah.
Most blindsides are blocks, okay? Because you're deliberately trying to get to somebody. He's trying to get to somebody else, and this guy ran in front of him. Like, what's he supposed to do? What's he supposed to do? It's like yesterday with Minka Fitzpatrick and Richardson. Richardson slides so late yesterday. That's his fault. Okay? What's Fitzpatrick supposed to do in that play? What? He's coming out to make the play. What? Just stand back and let him score a touchdown? All of a sudden, like, I'm going to slide. No, you kind of waited, Anthony, a little too long. Like, way too long. So there's a lot of stuff that happens on the field. My problem, again, is still more with the replay guys. But on the field, you got to have some common sense as to what's going on and a feel for the game. On that play, I've actually had a couple Penn State people say, well, by the letter, I said, please, will you stop it?
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with that. I said, use some common sense here. I said, you tell me what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to stop while the guy's trying to, block him? Oh, he's trying to block him. Oh, yeah, well, guess what? It's not his fault that he didn't have himself squared up and able to do it. So but it didn't play a role in the game because he missed the field goal in that drive, so it didn't play a role in the game. But I want to bring, there's got to be a better feel for the game and stuff like that. Because to me, the more egregious play is the one in the open field when Brian hits Kimber from behind. Yeah. It's like in the wide open spaces where everybody in America can see it.
Yeah. And you brought up a certain phrase there, and I want to ask you about it because during the game, it felt like the biggest issue for Penn State was kicking. Sander Sahadak missed 2 40-yarders.
Yep.
He then got benched on the final PAT for true freshman, I believe, Ryan Barker. And I wanted to ask...
He's a redshirt freshman.
Redshirt freshman Ryan Barker.
Yep.
And I wanted to ask about it because I was talking with Jason on our post-game show, just saying it feels like a bit of a low blow at the end to take Sahadak out. If his confidence is already low for missing 2, the point we made was his confidence is already not great for missing 2 40-yarders. He's had a rough season. He's got a PAT here, and you bring him out with 2 minutes to go or whatever it was to go. That was just like, it felt like a nail in the coffin, and it was just, like, I get bringing him out, but that one hurt a little bit, I think.
Look, you're sitting there, and on a night where points are at a premium, you didn't make it.
Yeah.
And there's also some history as well. Now, the field goal he missed at West Virginia was not important because it's, but he hit 2 big ones against Bowling Green on a day where you needed every one of them. He has been in this spot before because he was the kicker on opening night against West Virginia a year ago, and then Alex Falcon stepped in and then never gave it up.
Yeah.
Confidence is always important, without question. But you have to make a gut feeling, and when the competition is close enough in training camp, they decided to go with another option. Now, we knew that they were going to go with that option.
With Barker over Chase Meyer.
Oh, yeah, we knew that.
Okay.
Yeah, that part we knew. But we knew that they were going to switch up, including the extra point. So we did know ahead of time.
Got it. And Sahadak now, for his career, for those wondering at home, is 3 for 9 for Penn State. He's 1 for 4 from 40, from 1 for 5 from 40 plus.
Right.
0 for 2 from 30 to 39, and he's 2 for 2 under 30 yards. So not great. He did have the 2 misses last season against West Virginia, and then this year he missed one against them and then missed both of them this time.
Right.
And it just felt like a cascade. And there was also one drive in the middle of the misses where James went for on 4th down, would have been about 40-some-odd yard field goal, and decided to go for it on 4th instead of giving it a Saheda.
See, when it starts playing with your decision-making, that's why I think that was the series where I think it was 3rd down and they had Warren run the ball.
Yeah, it was 3rd down, you had Warren run it, and then you got to a 4th down and they went for it.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, they're going for it because Saheda just missed the first one, and it was like, let's just try for 7 here instead of going for 3.
Yeah.
And then they didn't get the 4th, and then he misses a second field goal, and it felt like it immediately just kind of piled up a little bit quickly. So Saheda now, I guess, it's Monday. We won't know for a little bit, most likely. But going forward, would you expect this to now be Ryan Barker kicking field goals? Would you expect Saheda to still be there? Would it be Chase Meyer?
Well, I think we have to see how the week plays out. Right? I mean, that's why you have kicking during the week. You know, look, and the reality is that you see the starting lineup all the time every week, and everyone, I think, thinks it's just automatically baked in who the starters are. Well, every single week, you know, everybody has to go out and continue to do something at a high level that allows you to keep the job, and that includes whether it's Saturday or whether it's Tuesday, Wednesday, or whatever. So you go out and kick this week, see how it plays out, and that's the only thing they can do.
Yeah.
That's the only thing they can do. And
they've luckily got time, and again, they're still going to be here, so there's no travel. It's just going to be staying in Happy Valley.
But you're going to need at some point field goals to get points.
Yeah.
You know, you look at the NFL. I mean, the NFL's being saved by field goals right now, points-wise, because every time you turn around, somebody's kicking a 50-plus yard field goal. Yeah. Okay? These are not chip shot field goals in the National Football League. Okay, teams are getting the ball to the 35-yard line. They're not even in the red zone.
No.
Not even in the red zone.
I think Brandon Aubrey has more fantasy points than a bunch of NFL players. Most NFL players do, I think, was like the number. He's got more fantasy points than like CJ Stroud or I think like Tyreek Hill, which doesn't seem logical. And I know fantasy is not something we discuss a lot, but like that's not normal. That doesn't happen. And Boswell's close, Greg Joseph, like all of these guys it is a field goal game now, where you're seeing teams just hitting field goals because they can't do anything
with that.
else.
Well, there's multiple reasons in the NFL. The quarterbacks are not good enough. Sorry. I mean, it's like, you know, and the offensive lines aren't good enough to give them time, and they can't be covered too. Okay, other than that.
So we'll see what kicking happens. For Meyer on his career, he was at Tulsa for 2 years.
Yep.
He is a grand total of 17 for 20 on field goals. He has not had any over 50. He's not kicked any over 50 either. His long was 47. He was 3 for 5 from 40 to 49. He's 30 for 32 on extra points. So that's where Meyer's at, and now Barker, as a redshirt freshman, is 2 for 2 on extra points in his career. He's now kicked 2 and made 2 so far.
Yeah,
so
he didn't kick it all last year.
Yeah, he didn't kick it all last year, so this is his update as of now. He hit 1 against Kent State. He hit 1 against Illinois. And I saw some fans, I want to bring this up, talking about the Illinois game, mad that Penn State only won 21-7. And what I wanted to say was, Illinois is a good team.
Yeah,
they were 19th ranked for a reason.
Oh, no,
they were
undefeated.
4-0, undefeated. Like, they were a really good team. And they came in to a big environment, and their first drive, like, quieted the crowd. Everyone was real quiet after that first drive because it was like, oh, uh-oh. And then all of a sudden, Penn State turned up and legitimately beat them down just violently. Nick Singleton and Katron Allen, or as James Franklin calls them, Nick Allen, beat up the defensive line for Illinois, and Penn State did so, as you mentioned, with two of their offensive linemen going down with poked eyes. Cooper Cousins came in. I thought he played really well as a true freshman. Like, he played well. Everyone came in and crushed it across the board. Andy Kotelnicki had fun, it felt like. There was some motions. There was one play, and I joked about this, that if I saw Vega Ioane running at me as a defensive back, I would run away scared. And there was one play where that happened, where he was running as the lead blocker. He lined up at like receiver, and he's running as a blocker. And I was like, if I am 200 pounds and 6 foot, I am about to get slammed into the ground and never see the light of day ever again.
Right.
And that's what we're seeing now, where there's these weird offensive lineman alignments, and Penn State won 21-7. Was it close to the end? Yeah, but Illinois is a good team. They played well. Penn State had a lot of mental errors, especially with the penalties that we've discussed.
Right.
And they got the job done.
Right. The
that was a lot, I know.
That's where depth comes into play. That's why I asked about depth to James in the postgame show, because you bring in J.B. Nelson when Sal goes down. When J.B. Nelson goes down, you bring in Cooper Cousins. You can't survive, because Penn State's had a fair amount of injuries this year. You can't survive and get to 4-0 unless you've got some depth of guys stepping up and playing for you.
Yeah.
And that was a 4-quarter game the other night. This was not a game where, like, it was Kent State, it's essentially over in the third quarter and the whole thing.
It's a dogfight.
Right? No, well, you expected it to be a 4-quarter game. So, you had to put a lot into it to get to the finish line in the game. And your depth gets tested. Kimber gets hurt, but I've got Elliott Washington. Right? Wormley and Nelson get hurt. Well, good news. I can take Venga and put him over at right guard, and you got Cooper Cousins. I mean, that really helps what you're doing out there. I've got an Amari Evans I can step in and play a wide receiver spot. Depth means a lot. Tamir Robinson got significant reps with Dominic DeLuca not playing on Saturday night. That's where you win, right? Because it's a long season, and sometimes these seasons are a battle of attrition. And Penn State's gone through now a couple of months of attrition. And, you're able to do some things with your defensive backfield with KJ Winston out because you have multiple corners, while still developing a young player like DeJuan Lane. And Day-Day's going to be a good player.
Yeah.
I have no doubt. I mean, Day-Day did not get – I don't think he had 10 snaps in the game. He had maybe 6 or 7 or 8 or something like that in the game. But he's going to get more snaps as time goes, and he's going to play – he's going to be a good player for them. But that's how you survive. Everybody you have to somehow survive. I mean, Wisconsin's trying to survive without Tyler Van Dyke at quarterback. Locke had a good quarter and a half, but I looked up, it was 21-7, right? And I was walking from the field back to the booth, and they had TVs on in the lower concourse. And it was third down, and Wisconsin was 0 for 2 on third down. I'm looking at the score like, well, how the heck are they winning? Now, keep in mind, Penn State third down. Penn State's now 51% on third down. They are... I'm calculate this. 14 of the last 21.
Not 66%.
At 67% on third down. The only game where they were underwater on third down was the Bowling Green game. They were 2-9. Other than that, they've been either right around 500 or well above it. That's been a big plus, keeping drives alive. Illinois did not want to relinquish the deep ball at all. Right? So Penn State took what it could get, but they ran the ball so well in the game. Allen, Singleton, the blocking. It's the ability to own the line of scrimmage. Meanwhile, Altmaier was under pressure almost all night, except for the first drive. For the first drive. Once they got into the rhythm of the game, Right? And the other part, too, is, and again, this goes back to what I mentioned earlier, that's the basketball experience in it. Dick and I always talk about how many possessions with about 4 minutes to go are left in the game. Well, in the fourth quarter, I said, Jack, look, the bottom line is get a 2-score lead because there aren't enough possessions left in the game for Illinois to come back and tie it.
There's not enough time.
Right? They don't have the time to do it. They don't. But you're not going to get. You're not going to get 2 possessions.
Yeah.
You're just not going to. Okay. Yeah. Simple as that. And that's Altmaier's first interception. And AJ made a really good play on that ball. And then look. What did Illinois run in the game?
They ran 34 yards.
No, I'm saying how many plays did they run?
How many plays did Illinois run?
Yeah, I think it was in the 50s, right? Like 58, 59.
Find on out for you in 3 seconds.
Right.
Illinois, in terms of total number of plays run, was
like right around
57 plays for Illinois, 65 for Penn State.
Okay, now let's do some math. 57 plays. 13 tackles for losses in the game. So that's nearly, not quite, it's like 23%.
Yeah.
Nearly 1 out of every 4 plays was a tackle for loss by the defense? Really?
Yeah. Crazy.
Right? But that tells you a lot. When you're getting that, okay, when you're pushing, again, one of the keys to the game going in was getting Illinois off schedule. When nearly 1 out of every 4 plays is a tackle for a loss, they're way behind schedule.
Yeah. Flipping to a game where there were a lot of possessions in the last 2 minutes.
I didn't see it.
You didn't see it. I was watching it live with Jason. We were sitting in the booth watching it while you guys were still doing your post-game show. Alabama, Georgia, with, I think, probably the game of the season so far. In terms of Alabama was up 28-zip early. Georgia is down then at halftime 30-7, and then just comes back with a vengeance.
Yeah.
And they come back, they build it up, they take a lead. Alabama punts with what I think was like 3 minutes to go. It was just about 2 minutes 30 to go. They punt. Georgia gets the ball. First play, Dylan Bell, 67-yard touchdown pass. Just killer. Go for the 2 points, don't convert it, but that's okay. They're still up 1. So they either do the 2 or it didn't matter at that point. Alabama needs a field goal. What happens? Next play, Alabama gets it. Ryan Williams, a 17-year-old freshman who reclassified to join Bama this season. 75-yard touchdown pass from Jalen Milroe on the first play from scrimmage after Georgia just scores. I watched it live with Jason. We were freaking out. Like, what is happening? And I'm assuming you've seen the play since by Ryan Williams.
No.
You have not seen the play.
I didn't watch any highlights of anything because when I got home, I watched UCLA and Oregon. Penn State's not playing Alabama or Georgia yet.
I would recommend going to watch it because it was one of the more impressive just overall displays. And I'll pull it up for you. We'll watch it afterward just for now.
I don't have time to do it today because I've got to go to a press conference at noon.
Okay. Well, regardless of what happened, Ryan Williams adjusts in midair, makes a 360 catch, brings it down, and then gets away from 2 defenders with another spin move, and then skirts the sideline, 75 yards for a touchdown. And then what happens? The game gets close. Georgia gets down to about the 20. Carson Beck throws his 3rd interception on the day. Xavier Brown picks it off in the end zone on an incredible interception where he just lets, I think it was Bell, go to the end zone, and he just watches the ball. He knows the ball is getting thrown there. He watches it and reads it like the receiver would. And Bell doesn't turn his head early enough. Brown does, picks it off in the end zone. Alabama wins in just, there's a reason these 2 teams are considered 2 of the best in the nation because that was just a fight to the end. Bama is now the number 1 team in the nation per the AP. Georgia, I believe, is 4th. I know we don't put a lot into it, but that is just where the ranking stands. Penn State is now 7th. Ole Miss dropped below them alongside a couple other teams dropped down. It's just kind of what happens when you lose. Utah lost. So it's an interesting look this week, but it was a very fun game to watch, and it was going on while the Penn State game was, which was really cool to see. Was we got to the booth, I'm sitting there hanging out, and it's like, oh, it's 28-zip Alabama at halftime, or it was 37. That's wild. That shouldn't be. Georgia's a good football team.
Right.
They come back. It was so. People, I have to assume these two teams are two of the best in the nation, and I would be very surprised if they don't end up doing something in December.
Right.
I think that's fair to say out loud. Would you agree?
Sure.
Yeah.
Mets and Braves play 2 today.
Mm-hmm.
What happens if they split the doubleheader? They have to play again?
What happens is if the Mets and Braves play today, if the Mets win, they're guaranteed a playoff spot. If the Braves win, they're guaranteed one in the first game. The second game, the same thing happens. If they split and they each win one, they're each in the playoffs. They have to then play a third game the next day to decide seedings, which is ridiculous. But if one of the teams sweeps it, they are in, and the Diamondbacks get in alongside them.
Right.
So Diamondbacks are hoping for a split between the Mets and Braves, and the Diamondbacks are praying for one of these teams to win out. So it is going to be a very interesting day. The first game is in an hour and 20 minutes at 1:10. The second game is at 4:40. So right afterwards, it's 9 hours of baseball today. And it is going to be just a wild end to this MLB season. And it is still crazy to me that this is what's happening after the weather delays from the 25th and 26th caused this doubleheader now to happen on this day.
Well, look, you can't.
Yeah.
Look, you can't control a hurricane.
No.
That, by the way,
is your problem.
Death, destruction, like real life. It's a baseball game.
Mm-hmm. I know.
Okay? If you got to play 2 today, that's fine. You're still, your property's fine. You're fine, right? There are other people whose property is gone, and there are other people that are unfortunately planning funerals because of the death and devastation of this.
Yeah.
So it's only a baseball game, so who cares?
I know.
All right, and that's the perspective that you have to have on something like this. I think that's, you can push back a baseball playoff game.
Yeah.
You can do that.
I just put back on Manfred, having seen this, and said, there's no contingency plan for this, bar this being what happens.
Right.
Because you would see it coming.
I mean, you have to have a contingency plan only because it's possible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, they're talking about something forming maybe this weekend because, I mean, look, because we're in the middle of hurricane season now. We just haven't had a lot of them to this point.
Yeah.
And to me, if that's what you got to do, that's what you have to do. It is no big deal because real life is more daunting than baseball.
Yeah.
And it just, whether it's Asheville, North Carolina, or the coastline or whatever it may be, there's a lot of destruction out there. And unfortunately, I think at least 50 people have died from this. So
there are full towns just gone.
So
and
what happens is, okay, that happens. And so who cares if they play 2 today? Who cares if they might play tomorrow? It's easy to like take shots at whatever, but you know what? You have to have a perspective about what's really important. And it doesn't matter if a game gets pushed back because of the weather, because the weather in real life took lives. The weather in real life caused destruction. There are people that survived it and they don't know what to do. There are people that survived it that are hoping the insurance company comes through. There are people who survived it and, and their rates have gone, and then this is a baseball game. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, if I need to play the World Series on November 4th instead of November 2nd, that's fine.
Yeah.
We can do it. Okay, it's no big deal. And that's how I view it, because I just think there's just real life that comes into play. And if you have to extend things because of the storm, there's no issue with that whatsoever.
And flipping divisions now in baseball to the AL. side of things to Friday night. It has not been discussed on this show. Friday night in Detroit, two things happened. Yeah. Number one, the White Sox clinched the losingest season, I believe, in terms of record in modern day baseball with 121 total losses. Yeah. They then won the last two games of the season against the Tigers because the Tigers, I think, were happy because they clinched themselves a playoff berth.
Suddenly out of nowhere, the White Sox got hot.
The White Sox got hot in two games, but also out of nowhere, the Tigers, the deadline, made moves to get worse. They traded their best player in Jack Flaherty. They traded a lot of players away. And everyone thought, okay, they're giving up on the season. And then they just, like, get red hot. And Tarek Skubal is the best pitcher in baseball. And you've got Jung, who comes up, who is, or Jackson Jobe comes up and is just a killer on the mound.
Look, you could, wow. Everybody, of course, has always been ultra critical of the Houston Astros with trash cans and things like that. I got that. But it's amazing how the two guys that were in the dugout, one was the bench coach and the other was the manager, actually turned out to be very good managers in their own right. A.J. Hinch is now the manager of Detroit, and Alex Cora has won a world championship with the Red Sox, and he's gotten to the American League Championship Series. They actually are really good at what they do. And let's give Detroit a lot of credit. They started winning, and they kept winning. And yes, success breeds success. And in Detroit's case, they're in the playoffs for the first time since 10 years, 2014?
10 years.
Which is great for that town. I mean, it's great. That town loves its sports.
Detroit's a sports town.
Okay, they love the Red Wings, even though they're bad right now.
They love the Tigers.
They love the Detroit Lions, and they love the Tigers. It's a beautiful ballpark, too.
Oh, yeah.
I'd never seen the ballpark till last year.
And you know what brought me joy in a funny way was who was on the call for them.
Oh, Jason Benetti.
Jason Benetti. And it happened against the team that let him go because they didn't want, I guess, one of the best broadcasters in the nation.
I don't know what. I don't know what they're thinking of.
But
he ends up at a spot where he has exciting call after exciting call after exciting call, as opposed to being in a depression tank for 6 months watching that play out at 41 and 121. Now, technically, their winning percentage is slightly higher than the 62 Mets because they were 40 and 120. Right? So 41 and 121 ends up being the final number.
Yeah.
By the way, did you ever see the movie Beverly Hills Cop?
I have seen the movie Beverly Hills Cop. John Ashton,
Lieutenant Taggart. What do we have in common? We both graduated from the same high school.
Oh.
He was 10 years in front of me, though. But he grew up in Enfield, where I did.
Connecticut.
That's where he grew up. He grew up in Enfield and graduated from Enfield High 10 years before I did. But, yeah. So he passed away at 76 yesterday. But Taggart, he hated the fact for a long time, hey, Taggart, right? And then after a few years, he kind of like, yeah, it's actually not so bad to be known as something. That's all right, because he did a lot of different movies. I mean, was it Gone Baby Gone? That was the Ben Affleck movie. He was in that one. That was really with Casey Affleck and Michelle Monaghan and Morgan Freeman and Ed Harris. John Ashton was in that one as well.
Detective Nick Poole in Gone Baby Gone.
Yeah, Gone Baby Gone, which is it's quite the twisted tale of that ends up being the conclusion of it is like, wow, like the baby's fine, the baby's in a good spot, but the baby has to go back to a mother that's not great. If you ever see The Office, what's her name who plays Michael Scott's, who turns out to be his wife, she's the bad person as the mom. It's like, okay.
But it was a lot. And I know it's been discussed here a little bit as well, but I wanted to bring it up because I don't think I've talked about it with you. But James Earl Jones, I know it's been a few weeks now since he passed away. But I mean, The Sandlot's my favorite film of all time. I have the sticker on my laptop right up here.
Yeah.
And Darth Vader, Sandlot, Field of Dreams, like incredible. Dame Maggie Smith passed away.
Good news. I want somebody to narrate this for me. I think James Earl Jones would be great.
Pretty much the greatest. If I were to pick a voice to have as like, I know everyone discusses like the voice of God. Who would it be? Morgan Freeman, whoever. Mine's James Earl Jones.
I'd pick Paul Keels of Ohio State, but that's a different story. I mean, he's like, holy mackerel. Roger's pretty good too. Right?
Yeah, not bad.
I mean, bottom of the list, Jerry. Hi! I said, no, I think you're not going to know. You're not going to get the part.
You know who I want to shout out for my extra voice? Dick Girardi.
Thank you for listening to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a 7 Mountain Media production. Come back at 11 every weekday for analysis of the latest happening in the sports landscape. From college football to European soccer, Steve and Kyle cover it all on Sports Talk with Steve Jones.